first, when you said you wanted to do a show on drugs, I figured you meant we'd do so. So I chose PCP and dropped some about 15 minutes ago. What did you do?
I will choose not to answer that as my lawyer has advised me.
It's going to get interesting. I saw the response on, all right, I'll go with you, X. That people say libertarianism have been arguing that legalizing drugs would lower the usage of it overall. I was like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that. I mean, have you?
Like I said, the only thing I can think of is people like us, make the forbidden few, but again, to me, it wasn't them saying that will make it, that'll more than offset the other thing. It was to say, there's a countervailing tendency.
When I saw that, I just thought, the basic argument is that if you put friction on anything, you should expect to get less of it, or less of it. But as Austrians, we're not trying to say what the demand is going to be, simply because we don't know what's going to change in the culture. That argument that maybe if you no longer say it's forbidden, that the teenagers aren't going to rebel and just go do a bunch of drugs to stick it to the parents or whatever. A weird objection. And then one of the things that frustrated me, you mentioned the show I did with my buddy Brian O'Leary called Natural Order Podcast, episode 15. You guys can check that out. naturalorderpodcast.com/EP15. He's from Oregon, and we talked about the drug legalization, quote unquote, they tried in 2020 there, and it is objectively a disaster. But it's not like the government got out of the drug enforcement business. They did it all goofy and haphazard like governments do. They didn't completely decriminalize it, they just made it lesser infraction, and then they did, just one of the most anarcho-tyranny things they could do. It's not true. What they normally do is the most anarcho-tyranny thing. They'll make a peaceful activity of taking drugs, putting a substance in your body. They'll make that illegal. But then they'll allow all the horrible ancillary side effects that come from drug use, like homelessness and eating and defecating in the streets. They'll just act like that's no big deal. I don't know where I'm going with that, but the government response to all things relating to drug prohibition and the ancillary societal effects is just all screwed up. It seems like hardly anybody's talking about it in the right frame.
Yeah, just to follow up on that particular thread, so that was one of the things that I noticed in the debates about it. Libertarians talking about it, and look, I'm really going to be rubbing shoulders with a bunch of crackheads on the street, and there's dirty needles all over the thing, and guys are literally pooping on the sidewalk and everything. Yeah, give me more of that, please. And so like you say, it's unfortunate that that's the suite of services that the state provides. Because they say, okay, the best we can do is decriminalizing this, but we're not going to allow for private ownership of this thing. And we're still not going to have the police go and enforce the basic civil order things.
You see how freedom looks like? There's a guy living in a kitchen in front of your business with a shotgun. There's nothing you can do about it. Fine.
So I had to mention, just in fairness, I understand. So I said something along the actual context, but it's related to this, is somebody was saying something about the opioid crisis. What are you talking about? That's exactly what happened. And I said, okay, but in a totally free society, I think the deaths of despair will not go down. And so it wasn't like America in the mid-2000s was this great place with a great culture and foundation. So somebody hit me with the Scotsman and say, okay, well, you saw your context. So, we just didn't do it right. And that was another, you guys mulligan. And, your libertarians more important. So I understand it. I don't want to sound Adam and I are saying, look, I didn't work partly because they had those other, but if you really wanted to see the benefit, so that's at least an opportunity. I'm not saying, I am saying, yes, other things that will legalize refraining from putting people in cages for selling plants to other people. That's always a good thing. It's not that I need to know something, I know things are in place first. I am just saying, though, notice the stuff people are pointing at, it's not just, the knowledge that there's someone in my city who's getting high inside of his property. That's not the issue. All the things they're pointing to is why this is a terrible idea are problems with state management. So we're not out of line and being doctrinaire and debating the argument or something. I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah, it's so weird to hear somebody, a libertarian, advocating for drug prohibition. And the way I like to motivate for conservative people who want safe streets or safe families without homeless, psychopathic, drugged-out freaks bothering them like zombies on city streets, and the homeless living everywhere and camping, and the filth and the crime. The way I frame it usually is that, yes, you are right, conservatives, that when drug use is rampant in a society, it's bad. It, on the margins, ruins the drug user's life. It can wreck families. You can weaken society. That's all true. Problematic drug use leads to social lack of social cohesion. All these problems are absolutely right. But adding prohibition on top of that just magnifies that problem, because you don't actually get rid of any drug use, really. As we learned in prohibition with alcohol, and as we learn now with drugs everywhere in America, what you do add, there's all the evils of prohibition, such as police corruption, communities not trusting the police because they're interfering, in decent behavior. Violence runs rampant. You get gangs, you get all the evils of black markets, you get poisoned product, because these things aren't, your dope is being made by Tylenol, and the safe factory is made by some goofball. And I just don't understand why conservatives who want a clean, peaceful, prosperous society think that adding a huge evil, prohibition, on top of a smaller evil, occasional drug use, how they think that's an improvement. It just seems nuts to me.
Yeah, just to avoid confusion, so Jeremy Coffin was not for drug prohibition, but the people chiming in the argument, many of them were. Jeremy's position was just to say, this episode's response to him. His position was, I am still for drug legalization. He listed why, but he said, but he was responding to me. He's like, but the standard libertarians have to be honest with what their case is to the public, because they've been dishonest with ignorant up till now. And so that's what,
Do you think that's an honest reframing of quote-unquote the libertarian position on drugs? Because it doesn't seem like it's being accurate.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I guess this is a response to that claim. So I don't want to keep building on the rest of this tweet, but yes, that's why I was talking about this. No libertarian has ever said this, as far as I can tell. Certainly that was never the linchpin. So for people wonder, okay, well, maybe you guys should tell us what is it. Besides just the principle argument, though, but the standard argument for alcohol legalization, drug legalization. By the way, before I forget, in my lessons for the young economist, which you can get the free PDF, folks, at Mises.org. So the name of the book is Lessons for the Young Economist. I have a chapter on drug legalization, and I would encourage you to look at it. I think I did a good job of distilling down the main arguments and clarifying them. And maybe this discussion and later gets to the point where I just think libertarians drop the ball a lot. But the basic argument is mostly what people have in mind when they think of the evils of drug addiction or whatever isn't because of the substance itself, it's because of the prohibition. So the drive-by shootings and stuff like that, that's clearly all the gang violence that we associate with drugs. That's 100% attributable to prohibition. And we know that because under alcohol prohibition with a capital P, you had gangland violence, Al Capone, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and all that stuff. That was all happening with alcohol. Once they legalized it, boom, it's not like executives of Budweiser and you have a drive-by shooting somebody from Heineken. That just doesn't make any sense. Not because they're better people, it just doesn't make any sense business-wise. It's not worth it. And so in the chapter I spell it, just see the argument step by step. Is what specifically why isn't it violence gets associated with the drug trade, a lot of other things. Once you're dealing in something that's already illegal, well, then you automatically you have to be paying off cops, you got to be paying off judges. So you're already doing something on the margin for you to use violence isn't the marginal cost of using violence, and then once you already have the infrastructure, you're already going to prison for 50 years if the system turns against you. So once you're in that spot, then yes, you're willing to use violence or whatever. And then also the kind of person who ends up running organizations in that environment is someone like that is very high risk taker and stuff like that. So anyway, it just selects for different people, and the incentives are totally different. But that is the standard libertarian argument that all these evils we associate with would largely disappear. And the other main thing I'm saying, before I forget, is that the purity of the drug or the alcohol of the drug, it also gets degraded under prohibition. Okay, so if you're talking about fentanyl, deaths, and a lot of what we call overdoses right now are because people weren't sure of the quality of the product. If you're getting it from name brand companies, maybe with a prescription, or, that wouldn't happen as much. Okay, so and when we see this under alcohol prohibition, there were lots more people. The rate of people dying from alcohol poisoning went up, and certainly if you can find it to the people who still drank. Right, I think it's still true of the overall population, but for sure, drinking alcohol became way more dangerous under prohibition. Not least of which because the government itself deliberately encouraged the use of like industrial alcohols to get put into the black market. It was literally poisonous. But I think even beyond that, one of the mechanisms in that is if you're in the black market and you're going to go to some guy who's distilling in his cabin in the woods or something, that's where you're getting your alcohol from because it's illegal. You're not going to go and get a 12-pack of light beer. You're going to go and get a flask of whiskey or whatever, right? So there's some data. Mark Thornton has a good article, of course, related to this stuff, folks. But the total expenditure on distilled spirits is a percentage of total alcohol sales. Right? So in other words, people spending money on alcohol, what percent was for spirits as opposed to beer? It was like 40% on the prohibition, and then it jumped up to like the high 80s. Right? So again, just showing people switched out of softer alcohol into the harder stuff under prohibition.
No, that's a great point. I never even thought of it. But yeah, one of the many evils is that if you make it risky to transport, there's an automatic incentive to concentrate the drug, so you're going to get more concentrated.
So you get that anything, you just sip on,
I'll have to check my local story, but I don't think there were many bottles of James wine coolers during Prohibition. I think they're selected out by the alcohol.
So that's why if what you're associating with, if you talk about people with drug addiction, that was the thing I keep saying. I'm sorry, I guess I never. But the way he originally framed it, I can tell in the comments, a lot of his fans thought I was digging my heels and saying, no, I don't know that alcohol consumption went down during 20. Well, yes, it did. That's different than what we call it. I have the definitive article on it. It rebounded, right? So I think the long-term thing was only maybe like 30% reduction. So again, it's speakeasies and kind of came forward, blah, 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 but it did go down. But the point is, Jordan didn't talk about that. He was talking about like alcoholism and stuff. And there I was saying, I'm not sure, because yes, fewer people are drinking total, but of the people that do drink now, instead of it just being like, oh yeah, having a glass of wine with dinner, it's when you got to go somewhere where there's a bunch of other people where they're breaking the law, so it's kind of fun, and give it to them to go do. They probably have a sip of wine and go back home, like, get hammered. Right? So it's again, so we'll link to some of that stuff. I wish I had hard numbers. I have articles in different minor ones that they see in this literature, and he relied on those data to estimate drinking cirrhosis cases, blah blah blah. So I was just talking about numbers, so I can't just tell them, because there was all this here on this about how things like that jumped in. Anyway, that's the argument, and so. Can I ask you? I don't want to forget if I ask you.
No.
Okay. Can you just go back, because you kind of went off on a tangent. I don't think you actually finished what you said about the Portland. Because you made the point on the episode of with your other your previous boyfriend. And so, but you didn't get out here. Like you were saying, it was still illegal to produce it, right? It was just they decriminalized the possession.
They decriminalized possession, and I think they made it like misdemeanor with the diversion towards a training program and all this other stuff. And I wanted to touch on what they actually did, because it brings up another point, which is that you libertarians are always saying that the government should be get out of the way and legalize drugs, and then the only instances we have seen in the real world are these Frankenstein. But now we libertarians want there's some weird Frankenstein conspiracy version like that. When marijuana was legalized in right now. It's a revenue generation mechanism, and the money will be funded with the public schools. So it's what they do. And then in 2020, they passed this bill that legalized so much more. It was funny, because they put in this big switch where they carved out a huge chunk of the money that was generated from marijuana sales that actually licensed regulated, and they're diverting it towards a bunch of weird drug-related community organization programs that just on the face of it just look crooked as all, and they look like bureaucratic fiefdoms, the kind of tribute where nothing really changes, but a bunch of people just get hired. It just seemed, if you always passed the referendum in Oregon, because you thought, well, our schools will get better. It's not really for legalizing marijuana, but it's for schools trying to get funded as crappy from schools, and then to find out that the government's always just giving you that big switch and taking it away from you later. But the larger point is, what do we do as libertarians when we advocate for the government just getting out of the way and having freedom, free market, freedom of association, private property, and we just never get they're not enforcing private property as they in Oregon, as I said, as they legalize possession, because they just let people act like lunatics. So.
But that's critical, right? So it's not that name brand companies can come in and give quality products and vacuum sealed bags and blah blah blah.
And I assume there's all still gangs doing distributing, so it's still illegal, the possession for large quantities. So are you exactly legalizing just a fraction of it?
And again, I realize we come off like communists or something, but you're doing obviously more. But like the electricity deregulation, where California, where they deregulated the wholesale market, but they kept the price controls on retail residential stuff. Because all we can't is have homeowners that electric bills triple or something. It's crazy. But many economies more beforehand, when they just exposed to some other libertarians and bad. They're saying if you do that, if you allow the wholesale price to skyrocket when conditions are like that in the market, but then people selling it can't raise the price accordingly, you're going to have blackouts. What do you think's going to happen? The wholesale price jumps and you're not allowed to come break even. You're just going to stop producing in that period. So wholesale prices come down. Lo and behold, they have rolling blackouts, or so they call them, and people lose some trees and try to free market electricity. open sale, anything goes, and it blew up in their faces. And like you're saying, it's certainly the sidewalks and the police and everybody were still running the state.
I've got a messy, real-world question for you, and I'm motivated to bring you school choice. Like, as libertarians, we know we want complete privatization of all things, complete separation from education. And I think that educational savings accounts are a useful step on the way from the whole system we have now towards a political free system. And other smart people, I think you would disagree. I don't hear you about that here, but I want to take that logic and apply it to drugs. We advocate that complete freedom. This is just a product insurance. Like any other, maybe some restrictions for children, or whatever, but by and large, just like alcohol. Since that's almost never on offer, the proposed measures are some sort of scheme to license, regulate, and control various aspects of it. Should libertarians argue against those half measures because they're not the full libertarian ideal, or how do you answer a messy question?
Yeah, so again, it is tricky with this stuff because you don't two things. You're not really anywhere if you're saying, I insist on absolute Rothbardia or else nothing, or else whether I walk. Okay, then nothing's gonna happen in your life for sure. Absolutely. You can interdimensional travel, you can go somewhere. Yeah. So there's that, but also I certainly don't want to like ex post, like I said, once we walk behind something that doesn't work, and you say, well, that's because there was still, the government was asserting the validity of weights and measures, and so therefore, this tax cut didn't work. So there is that. So that's why I'm hesitant. I think that, the consistent libertarian, like Barry Rothbard's position on this stuff, just in general, not about educational reform or drug legalization per se, but just in general, he was always saying any genuine reduction in state aggression is a good thing. And so if somebody says, hey, let's lower the income tax rate from 40% to 30%, we should welcome that. It's not that you say, oh, but that's still 30% theft, that's crazy. Like, yeah, going to zero would be better, but moving from 40 to 30 is unambiguous, let me take it. And
yeah, but that's a very rare pure case.
Right.
Just a reduction on the same metric.
So that's, there is that element. But I'm saying some people, even that's progress though, because some people don't like, or like giving tax credits or whatever. But there are some people, self-described libertarians, who were really upset when under Trump, the Republicans pushed that big overhaul of the tax code. There were some, I mentioned Scott Sonner, who was really mad that they left in the tax incentives for healthcare, for health insurance. And this way your employers providing all these Cadillac plans and stuff like that. He was really upset. His biggest complaint was that the Republicans left that in there because in his view, for the same amount of revenue, you can lower rates across the board if you got rid of all these different deductions and blah, blah, blah. And I get his point, but, so he was mad that they didn't just get rid of the deduction, which would have raised. So I'm just saying Rothbard's point is what it is. The other one, I don't know if I said it with you, Adam, on the previous thing, but there are even cases where that is tricky, where you can say libertarians are against the government handing out food to people, right? Oh yeah, totally. Okay, so for the guys that are in federal prison right now, we should stop feeding them. So there are cases like that where if you just, I know it was Scott talking about banking deregulation, but even Ron Paul apparently was saying, we shouldn't get rid of Glass Steagall or something. That was dividing, banking and commercial investment banking. To say what we can't do is quote deregulate and allow banks to do more things while there's still this FDIC in place and the Fed's implicit put and all that, where the bankers know if you suffer big losses, you're going to get bailed out. But go ahead and do whatever the heck you want. Like Scott was saying that it's a sensible thing as libertarians say, given these other things are in place, you can't just unwind that one particular government feature, even though in a free society that particular thing wouldn't be there. So there are cases like that. With the drug stuff though, I don't think, Adam, you could say as a libertarian, I think we need to keep heroin illegal until we get rid of the welfare state or until we privatize the streets. I would have trouble saying that.
Right, I'm with you. I feel the same way. My general answer to the problem is that I think we should always be advocating for the pure solution. And occasionally, we'll take steps that are a little bit more piecemeal when they make sense. Would you have objected, like if you were to decide to go to California as to that partial deregulation that was obviously going to lead to a disaster, would you have voted for it?
I'm not sure because I don't understand the exact property arrangements.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it all driven by some of the stuff was quote publicly owned, and then it was just the policies they were setting, then that's kind of different to me than, like if the government owns a bridge, I don't think that the optimal toll is $0 because otherwise it's, Like it's kind of a weird thing where if you're operating, or maybe a better way is interstate highways that, no, we're not going to privatize them, that's off the table, given that they exist, should there be a speed limit. I don't think it's an extra amount of aggression to say you can't go more than 85. Okay, I mean, we can quibble with the numbers, but I don't think a speed limit per se, given that we all agree the government's going to own it, is...
That's some reasonable rules,
Yeah, so with the California thing, I hesitate to give you an answer because I don't know exactly. I'm sure the government probably owns some key infrastructure places and they could have gotten the outcome they wanted just by doing that, in which case I could have plausibly said, well, no, that's a bad idea, to deregulate that piece of information. All you're really doing was changing the policy of some of those government-owned enterprises.
I got another weird idea to take it back to one of your many Twitter battles with this guy who was claiming that libertarians are always saying that if you legalize drugs, you'll get less drug use, which again is weird. I've never heard anybody say that except for the forbidden fruit argument you made. But then as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm going to argue that very thing just to see how far I can push it.
Is it because the PCP is your guy?
It really is, man. You look like a dragon. I mean, it's weird. No, I'm just saying if you can snap your fingers and live in Rothbardia, no central bank, no evil government doing evil things, just private property, freedom of association, work out our problems like civilized human beings. I do think if you just snap your fingers and find yourself in that world, especially say after you've been acting for a century or two, I do think there'd be a lot less substance abuse in a world like that because I think you get less social decay in a world that isn't riddled with the evil that is, the monopoly use of force on peaceful people. I think we have a more healthy society. If we not only legalize just heroin, say, but if we actually live in a free society, I do think it'd be more healthy and people wouldn't be so subject to despair. I feel like they don't have any prospects for exerting effort into this world and sort of turn inwards to drug abuse and all the evils that come with it. So there, I did make the argument.
Right, but again, like that's what I'm trying to say. Because I think you're doing the full Monty with that, right? So, but if it was just the one thing, and also do, you just said it's other things equal.
Yep.
Right. So, but yeah, I think probably people wouldn't buy as much from fast food places. That's what we can consider to be right now, like that kind of food. Probably, you guys get rid of taxes, so wouldn't the Big Mac become even cheaper? Yes, it would, but then there's other things too right now that aren't available, or they're really expensive to become afford, and then people would have so much more disposable income and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So, I think that is also true as well. But again, it's not a violation of standard economics. It's just other things equal, the lower prices and the lower demand.
Yeah, I was cheating. I don't mean to insist that if you just legalize drugs, that you get less drug use right away. I don't think that's true.
But I agree. I mean, that's partly what I'm trying to understand, like the opioid crisis or whatever. I don't think you just do it in a vacuum. I think you need to look at well, gee, why isn't like the life expectancy of American men, especially like started white men, fell for a couple of years there? I haven't looked recently to see if it's turned around. I'm assuming it is. And there's a lot of overlap with like vets and stuff. You know, there were, I'm not saying this is the whole thing, but people going over to Afghanistan and just seeing some crazy stuff and coming back. I mean, there were a lot of people, I think, in that category. And they called them deaths of despair. It wasn't deaths of lower marginal cost. Okay, so it's not that the deregulation. And that's like, too, I don't know that there was this big experiment. I think it was partly when some of these things came to market. And like, I don't remember that there was in the mid 2000s that George W. Bush signed the opioid legalization act or something. So I think right. So, but again, it was still covered with prescription laws. You know what I mean? So it's weird to me that, as often happens in this stuff, when something bad happens under a tightly regulated market, people say, "Oh, there's laissez-faire for you." And again, I'm not doing no True Scotsman thing here. That it's not. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy. Like, I know, senior citizen apartment complexes and stuff where younger kids would go there to buy the drugs from. You know what I mean? Like there's somebody who's an elderly person who was getting prescribed painkillers from the doctor. They say, "Oh yeah, my back's good," or whatever, and they sell it to teenagers. You know, there's all kinds of stuff like that. So say what you will about that, but that's not a laissez-faire functioning market where the big drug companies are selling directly to the consumer with ads on television or something. That's not what that is. So you can say that still maybe it's a bad idea, but we should keep it outright prohibited and not even let those senior citizens get access to these things. But it's not. Oh yeah, that's the libertarians I'm not for.
Yeah, definitely. You're familiar with Safety, which your grandfather's last name, the Fiat Standard guy, and I think you wrote a book where he accused the central bank of artificial money of just poisoning basically everything that we do. Are you familiar with that thesis, and do you think that's the case?
I haven't read his, but I've read portions of it. I mean, I've seen comments on podcast interviews and stuff like that. I think I know the basic gist, and largely on board with it. But yeah, that's obviously like people complaining about people buying crappy foods and whatever. It's a big, all this stuff kind of goes together. I'm going to start sounding like RFK Jr. or something. But I do think that yes, all this stuff kind of goes together, and cheap fiat money that's flowing through politically connected channels is a necessary condition for all these things to have gotten as bad as they've gotten.
I totally agree. And I'm not going to tell the law or your family or anything like that. The juice that it's speed. I did PCP, and I believe you've done speed. Did you have any more points you wanted to hit on?
Yeah, before I forget, let me just mention, I teased the audience in the chapter from the list of the Uncommon on drug prohibition. I hit back as a lot of times people are making a standard case from a libertarian perspective for drug legalization. And they'll say, the reason there's more gang violence or something is because there's no property rights. So like, you're supposed to do a deal with somebody and you're going to sell them a bunch of drugs for a suitcase full of cash, then you guys go meet in a parking garage and you park the cars and you pop the trunk, and then this boys just rob you at gunpoint. You can't just call the police and say, hey, I was selling a bunch of cocaine. So that's true. But they're making it sound like, the reason there's this bad outcome here is that you don't have access to this vital police service or this vital government service and police protection. And so, it's the problem is the police are refraining from helping you, and that's where things. And no, that's wrong. Just think through the consequences. The reason you're meeting in a parking garage is because if you met, somewhere else, the government would come and shut you down.
Yeah, it's not that the police are threatening to withhold service.